Well, once again there guys, Brian here at 3GR, and with 2015 coming to an end, and since I've already shared my list of the top 10 worst movies I saw this year, I think we either turn the tables around and share with you the top 10 best movies that I saw this year. Now, like always, this list is my own personal opinion, and I'm sure there's even going to be a couple of big recent movies that won't be on this list for obvious reasons. So, starting off real simple with number 10, I picked The Walk. Now, I really liked The Walk because it was really the only movie I saw this year in IMAX 3D, and I think you need to see it in that way. And I thought it was a pretty well-established heist movie about explaining how this balance artist was able to put a wire between the Twin Towers and then walk between it. I mean, it's a pretty impressive story, and I think it adds more, despite the fact there was a documentary a few years ago called Man on the Wire. So this just kind of adds that story of knowing just how difficult this was and what it meant to him and what it meant to the city of New York City. I mean, and I also really appreciate that this really didn't even focus too much on the fact that the Twin Towers aren't there anymore. And although we should never forget what happened on 9/11, I don't think we should have that be the only memory we have of the Twin Towers. I mean, it was an amazing engineering feat, and I think this movie focused more on that than what ended up happening to them. And I really appreciate the movie for doing that. And I thought even The Walk itself, that whole sequence was just magnificently shot, because especially if you see it in IMAX, you kind of get a feeling for like, wow, this is like, it must have been really high to be standing on those towers. So I really enjoyed it most just because of the experience and the story it told, and that's why I thought it was really well deserving of my number 10 spot. Going into number 9, I picked the Peanuts movie. Now, I grew up with Charlie Brown. I'm sure most of us did. So I'm happy to see that they actually added a new Peanuts movie in a new animation, and kind of told a story that I think everyone who has a kid inside them can appreciate. It wasn't so dumbed down that it was just for kids, and it definitely had a number of adult well, not really adult themes, but like life themes that I think anyone who's grown up can relate to. So what I liked about the Peanuts movie was you're taking a franchise that everyone is normally familiar with, and you're telling a new story that everyone from all ages can appreciate. And that's something that, I really do admire the film for doing. And that's why I put it as number 9 on my list. Going into number 8, I picked Dragon Ball Z Revival of Frieza. Now, in my worst list movie, I put Attack on Titan, explaining why you shouldn't do a live-action version of an anime show. Well, this is an example of how you do an anime movie for an anime. You make it animated, and you make it for the fans. I mean, this isn't something I recommend anyone who's not already a fan of the franchise to go into, because they're definitely going to be talking about things that, they're not really go great into detail with. But this is a movie for Dragon Ball Z fans, and it certainly lives up. I do admire the fact that we did get a new transformation, which is kind of typical for Dragon Ball Z movies. And I like how it brought a whole new dynamic of opening the world of Dragon Ball Z to those of us who are already familiar with it. I mean, I know they're kind of already doing it a little bit more in the new Dragon Ball Super series, but I like the fact that it brought some familiar feelings, and it was pretty much Dragon Ball Z action at its best. I thought the animation was truly phenomenal. I thought the voice acting was around the clock great, and it even threw a couple little curveballs at me that I wasn't expecting or didn't see coming that made me can explain why I still love this franchise after all these years. And that's why it's number 8 on this list. Going into number 7, I picked probably the most brutal movie I've seen this year, and not just this year, but in a long time, but The Revenant. Wow. I have to say, this was really, really gruesome. I mean, it tells your pretty standard revenge story about, this guy is, he goes this experience, he loses someone important to him, and now he's going to go on this, journey of survival for revenge. And I have to tell you, Leonardo DiCaprio, someone give that man an award. I mean, this guy, I heard stories of what this guy had to do for this film, and he deserves an Oscar just for what he put himself through. I mean, this shows acting commitment at its finest. And what is even more surprising was how they filmed this movie. I mean, I heard that it wasn't really done with lights. It was all natural lighting, which you never really see that in modern movies, or especially movies with a budget. And there were even some shots that I don't even know how they filmed some of this stuff. So it was really the spectacle, and it was the amazement of how they were able to even film a movie like this the way they did, that was truly remarkable to me. And the performances around the board were just really well captured. I mean, I didn't really get Tom Hardy all that much. I mean, he's always a great actor, but heck, Leonardo DiCaprio, dude, you got my respect hands down. And that's why I felt I need to put it as number 7 on this list. Going on to number 6, I picked Jurassic World. Now, look, when it comes to Jurassic Park series, Jurassic Park 1 is obviously going to be the best, and I actually like Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, quite a bit. Didn't really care too much with Jurassic Park 3. But going into Jurassic World, I felt that it did bring it back to its roots. There were a couple factors that I think they could have improved on in terms of storytelling. But overall, I appreciate that Jurassic World was pretty much able to bring back the wonder of making dinosaurs amazing again, despite the fact that they even kind of went into detail with that in the movie, explaining how, dinosaurs really aren't that amazing to that world, which, I think is completely ridiculous. I mean, heck, if we saw a dinosaur now in the real world, I think we'd be all freaking out, whether it's like a grass eater or a meat eater. It would get some type of reaction. So the fact that they decided, they wanted to create this new dinosaur, I thought was a pretty interesting idea, kind of a little bit too sci-fi for me, but overall, it was just an overall enjoyable movie that obviously did very, very well in the box office, and I think is well deserving of it. I'm not really sure where they'll go with the next 2 movies. I mean, I have some ideas, and some of us have thrown some theories around, but as long as they keep the heart of what Jurassic Park needs to be, I think we'll be fine from this point on. That's why it's number 6 on this list. Going on into number 5, I picked Straight Out of Compton. This was probably one of the best, I guess you could say, biopics I've seen in a while, because it was able to tell a story that I personally, I'd heard little hints about what was going on during this time period, but to actually see it play out, and play out in a very amazing fashion, was truly, truly amazing. I mean, I don't really know too much about, Dr. Dre and Eazy and Ice Cube before their modern days, so the fact that I kind of got to see their rise and all the trials that they had to go to, and seen it portrayed so well, not only made me kind of appreciate, them as, these men as real people, but it made me understand just what kind of crazy time I missed. I mean, I'm happy I was kind of born a little bit after all this crazy stuff was happening. But it made me interested in it a little bit more, and it made me appreciate the music. I mean, I'm a big fan of old school rap, but I could never understand why. This movie helped me explain why I appreciated old school rap more than modern rap. So I thank the movie for that in a great way, and that's why I felt it was well deserving of its number 5 spot on my list. Going into number 4, I picked Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. Now, obviously, Ghost Protocol was a truly amazing Mission Impossible movie, but this one took it to a whole nother level, because it wasn't just about Tom Cruise doing all these awesome stunts by himself, which, he's an actor on another level than most action stars are, because he's willing to do these crazy things himself. But I liked that it involved the team a lot more, which was something that I believed Ghost Protocol handled very well, and this just took it to a whole nother level. I really liked how Sean Penn actually had more of a bigger role. I like how he actually got a new kind of female lead, which held her own, and I'd like to really see more of her, not only in the Mission Impossible franchise, but see more of her in other movies as well. And I think that it really does balance out how you handle an action-driven spy movie. Some of them have to be a little bit sophisticated, like something like James Bond, which, I thought for me didn't really handle it too well. But this one was like an action-packed movie that had great pacing, great action. You cared about the characters, you cared about the situation, and when the movie was over, you had a pretty rewarding experience. And I felt that from beginning to end, and that's why I felt it was well deserving of my number 4 spot on this list. Going on into number 3, I picked Mad Max Fury Road. I really underestimated this film. I really thought it was going to be like something like a grindhouse movie, but wow, this was some of the most impressive action I've ever seen. And some people would even go as far as say it's probably one of the best action movies they've ever seen, and I'll join that club, because the car scenes, the whole movie was so fast paced that it really felt like one long chase, which I can say it was, but it's just the fact that they took time to establish some of the characters. I thought Charlize Theron was really impressive in this film. I mean, I thought I was going to have a problem with her being the main lead and kind of Tom Hardy being Max, kind of being sidelined. It's more about her story than it is his, and I thought I was going to hate that going into it, and I really thought her character was probably one of the best female characters I've seen in a movie in some time, which I thought was very impressive. And it's just the action is shot so beautifully. You see everything that happens. It has such a great sense of atmosphere and suspense, which you don't really get to see in most action movies involving car chases. I mean, you kind of get this feeling that, oh, you know, they're safe or they survive, but no, there's some really gruesome, just dirty car chases in this movie. And the fact that it has such an amazing atmosphere that kind of keeps the blood pumping, like it does not really slow down that much, and even when it slows down, once the action pumps up again, like you are right in there, you're feeling this massive adrenaline rush, and that's something I really haven't felt in any of the other movies on this list, so which gives it a solid place as being number 3 on my list. Going on into number 2, I picked probably the movie I was surprised the most about, because I had my expectations about it, and it managed to exceed it in every department. And that is Kingsman: The Secret Service. Initially, what this movie was is it's a callback to old school style James Bond films, but it does it better and brings it to a modern day light. I absolutely loved this movie beginning to end, simply because it had a lot of its most iconic moments, but it was innovative enough to kind of be modernized. And so it initially did what Spectre was trying to do, but so much better. I thought how the film was shot was amazing. I was really very impressed with the characters. I cared about the characters, despite the fact that the ending felt a little bit out of place. It makes me kind of curious where they can go with the next one. What this movie did overall as a movie was it introduced me to a new world. It got me interested in the characters. It got me interested into the world, and it brought me back to an older time in my life, but reminded me why I prefer this style of spy movie than, you know, kind of what we got with the most recent James Bond movies, which I think that in terms of Spectre, it kind of failed a little bit to me, although I did think Spectre was a good movie. It just kind of stumbled a little bit, while this kind of didn't. It was like a straight arrow, and it did not miss any beats, and if you ask me to pick a complaint, I really can't find too many that really bothered me, and that's why I felt it was number 2 on this list. Going into number 1 was a movie that I didn't really know what to expect going in, but coming out, it really was the most enjoyable experience, and I had the most fun with this movie out of anything I saw this year, and that is The Martian. It's one thing to make a movie about fiction and do it right, but it's a completely another situation. And it's unique in its own way to make a movie about a situation which is plausible and to make me believe in it. I mean, you have Matt Damon, who's an astronaut who's now trapped on Mars, and it's basically a battle for survival. And then you have the people on Earth who are trying to figure out how do we get him back. And it's the fact that we're telling 2 different stories, but they're so well connected that they work. It's like 2 pieces from 2 different puzzles which shouldn't be working, and you think that, you know, jumping back and forth, it's going to be confusing, but it isn't. It's like it makes sense every time it jumps back to think what people are doing on Earth, and it makes sense, you know, what Matt Damon doing in order to survive, and it's just how he brought so much humor to this movie. I mean, the guy is trapped on Mars, and he pretty much has to be pretty innovative in order to survive, and then you're with him all the way, and it's not like everything goes according to plan. It's like Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and it's seeing him have to fight through these struggles. It's like just when you think everything is good, you know, we have a plan, something bad happens, we got to come up with a new plan, but we're not going to panic about it. And that's something that I think that as a character really stood out to me. I mean, he was someone who, you know, wasn't really prepared for this situation, but he made his situation work. And even the people on Earth, they were trying to, like, find a way to help him, but every time they were trying to do something, something went wrong, and then they simply had to bring their minds together and come up, okay, this is how we're going to help you. And it just worked so well together. The characters are great, the story was great, the humor was perfect, the situation made me believe in it. And when you can make me believe in something plausible, that puts you on a whole different level than just going into a movie and wanting to be entertained. I wasn't just entertained, it made me believe in it. And that's what made it the best movie I've seen this year. And with that, those are my top 10 movies that top 10 best movies that I saw this year, and I would like to know what are the top 10 best movies that you saw this year. Share your list with me in the comments down below, and if you like this video, feel free to like, comment down below, and please subscribe to check out my future videos. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.